Hey everyone, so blessed that you are here with us today with Larry Ballard. Yep, we have another segment to bring forth to you, all about mind control. Oh yeah, come on now. We're going to talk about it. We're going to open up Pandora's box, and hopefully this segment will set you free on what's been really going on. Before we do that, hey, I want to thank this phenomenal company, upfront.petclub247.com. Phenomenal product, Coriolus Versicolor. This has been patented in a way that nobody has this. It's great for your body, but for your pets too. So if your pets are dealing with any lumps, bumps, or eye issues, aches and pains, this is a great product for them. And of course, we're going to talk about fix. Yes, we're fixing your body. The vagus nerve, that is. Did you know that the vagus nerve, there's well over 1,100 functions from your brain all the way through your organs. It's like the tree of life to your gut. So if you're dealing with any of those issues, it just means that your vagus nerve is sluggish or not working at all. So help us get you to the perfect way God created you. The links are below. Just click on them. This is the MAHA Project. We are helping tens of thousands of people. And it's just been amazing, amazing. From people with their hair growing back, inflammation gone, even weight loss as a byproduct, because you can't lose weight effectively and keep it off if you've got so many issues going on within your body. Talk about diverticulitis out of here, Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. Yeah, I dealt with that, and God fixed it through this vehicle. So we're fired up about it, and I know you can tell. But without further ado, I want to get Larry on with us because this has been a subject that many people haven't heard about or don't even believe it. But mind control is for real. So Larry, welcome aboard and abroad.
What country am I in here? I forgot.
I know. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I mean, as of late, a lot of people may think that, Larry, like, where am I? Is this the America I was born in?
I don't know about you, but I'm in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah. or the Matrix, right?
Yep, either one. Shall we get started?
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this.
You can just buzz right through that first one. It's just mind control, divide and conquer, and let's look at it and see what it is. Now, for those who've been following me for the last year or two, I have to make an announcement.
Okay.
From now till who knows when, you're going to see a lot of repeat slides. Here's why. We're going into new territory, but God always has me prepare well in advance. So all these slides that I've been using for the last 2 years are now becoming more relevant, for one, because people are now finally paying attention, and two, because those slides relate to different sets of circumstances, so they can be used multiple times. So what you're going to see, this is part of a 2-part series on mind control. You're going to see a lot of slides in this segment that you've seen before, but I've got to set the stage for next week. Next week, we're going to dig down into what they really are doing to us to brainwash us. But first, you've got to get the feeling. You may say, when we started into this, well, this doesn't really feel like he's talking about mind control, but I am, because if you're going to believe what they're going to do to us on mind control, you have to believe some of the other things that they've done to us. You have to believe that they really do want to kill us. You have to believe that they really do want to control us. And you have to believe that they really have been doing it for decades. Then you're ready to hear the story about what they're doing every day to control your mind, to take away your freedom, to make you basically passive and docile, and to basically control and manipulate it. So let's go to the next slide. And I'm going to read this one, but let me give you some history. The name on this is Edward Bernays. And in World War II, we all probably know that the Nazis had a propaganda machine, right? Well, we can't just sit back and do nothing while they're doing what they do. So the man that was in control of the U.S. propaganda machine was this man, Edward Bernays, the cousin of Sigmund Freud, and the man who is basically called the father of modern advertising. / I would say brainwashing. So here's what he has to say about how you are controlled and manipulated. And before I read this, I want to tell you why I'm so excited about what's happening. I've been waiting 57 years for the time that God said it's go time. And now God has been telling me day after day, it's go time. It's now where we're finally at the brink of collapse, the brink of destruction, that people are going to wake up and pay attention. And what God told me is, I'll call you out and I'll multiply your platform. I've kept you in the shadows, in the cleft of the rock all these years because A, people weren't ready, and B, because it was going to be dangerous to come out too early. You'd be a target. So right now, I feel like we're here. We're at that moment. And what's supposed to happen at that moment? What's supposed to happen is the truth is going to come out. And how is it going to come out? It's going to come out because we have an entire army of whistleblowers that are queued up, ready to come out and tell us the truth about this, about a multitude of other things, about election threats, but election integrity, about the illegal immigrant issue, about elections, about wars, et cetera, et cetera. And when that happens, people are going to open their eyes. And what God told me repeatedly, when that happens, we'll have our eyes open, and then we will stand united, one nation, one people, one world, indivisible under God. And that's what's coming. So we're about to basically take a great big eraser and erase everything they've done to brainwash us. So it's not going to be easy, but the things are going to be coming out so fast that this is the preface. This is what begins the process of understanding the deluge that's going to be coming, that's going to set you free. So here we go. I'm going to read this and think about this and ask yourself seriously, am I a victim of this? Is this really true? In every act of our lives, whether in the sphere of politics, our business, in our social conduct, our ethical thinking, we are dominated by the relatively small number of persons who understand the mental process and social patterns of the masses. It is they who pull the wires that control the public mind. So let me stop. Let's talk about this for a minute. Let me ask you, like I always do, put you on the spot like I always do. What do you think about that comment? And do you feel like you've been controlled and manipulated? And if so, how? So this is a general question for your audience, and I'm using you as their megaphone. So tell me what you think. Do you feel controlled and manipulated? And if so, how do they control and manipulate you?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. They've been using the media as well as movies for years, decades. And they use that by just, keep on pumping it out until you actually believe it. Look at the movie Manchurian Candidate, what they did. And that is for real. And it's still going on today as we're talking about. But yeah, the media, you look at television. They're trying to implant a vision, within your mind over and over and over again. What do they say? If you do something over and over again, it becomes a part of you, a habit. And so they want that mindset to be implanted. And they do it by movies and media. Well, look at the puppets out there. You look at all the networks, and saying the same thing across every media, CNN, MSNBC, and all these other networks, the same thing over and over again, because that's what they want you to believe. I mean, now they're using frequencies and, with the cell towers and everything else. I mean, yeah, they're bombarding the people.
Absolutely. You mentioned Manchurian Candidate. We're going to dig into that next week. And that relates to something called MK Ultra. And a lot of people know what it is, but I don't think they have any idea what they do to these people, how horrible it is, what they do to them. They utterly erase their entire memory, their entire personality, and supplant it with a new personality. And then they have the ability to assign them to commit some act of sabotage or murder. And then they don't even realize they've done it. But anyway, back to this. So here's how we're the lowest level targets. I mean, they're targeting people who stand in their way. So what they're doing to us is nothing compared to what certain other individuals get thrown at them. But here's how it comes down to. If every single solitary thing you're told for your entire life is a lie, then how do you know what the truth is? Here's what they do. It was Hitler who said, the size of a lie is important. Why? Because each and every one of us often tell a little lie. We fib sometimes just to keep from hurting people's feelings. But if you tell a huge lie and you tell it over and over and over, and there's nobody to repudiate it, it becomes the de facto truth. And that's what they've done to us. Every sphere of influence, not just the media, not just entertainment, but our politicians, our education system, our churches, all of them have been co-opted, and they're all telling us the same story. So there's no place for us to go to find the counter narrative. So let's take Fox, for example. People think, oh, well, Fox is our friend. No, I think Fox might actually be one of the most dangerous news outlets out there, because we realize that the CNNs and the CNBCs and so forth are basically sold out. But Fox, fair and balanced, they claim that they're telling us the truth. Well, what they do that's even more dangerous is they tell us some of the truth, but they mingle it with a half-truth and with an out-and-out lie, and then they twist it. And here's what they do. So we're being fair and balanced now. We're being fair and balanced. And that leaves you in a situation where you're so confused that you just don't know what to do. And what they're trying to do is make us freeze like a deer in the headlight because we don't know what to do. And then what kicks in after that? Cognitive dissonance. So some friend comes along who, like me, who for various circumstances in my life has been immune to that kind of brainwashing, and we try to tell you the truth, and you say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. And that's why in my case, God told me that's going to happen. That's what they're going to label you if you come out too soon. But if you base it on history that can be proven, and on the Bible, which is 70% history, and then you tie it to current events, then you can show the cracks in what they're doing, and you can show how they're manipulating us, and people's eyes will open. And when we understand the degree to which we have been enslaved, then the people are going to stand up. They divide us based on religion, based on skin color, based on economic status, based on sex, based on political differences. Everything is designed to divide and conquer, because they know the Bible. They know that God says a nation divided cannot stand. Well, God also made us a promise that he was going to open our eyes. And when he did, the truth would set us free, and we'd stand up and become united. That's what's coming on. But first we have to believe in our hearts that they really are brainwashing us, and believe that it's very sophisticated. And then we can start to see our way through it. So let's go to the next slide. And what I'm doing here for the next several slides is just building the case for how evil they are. So when we get to the brainwashing, you won't have so much cognitive dissonance, but you might just be able to believe it. So that picture is depicting what? The UN, and depicting the shadow government. And here's what it says. And this was all the way back in 1950. And what it was, in my opinion, was an assault on the Constitution of the United States, on basically the entire political system. J.P. Warburg, representing the Rothschild banking concern, went before Congress and Senate and said the following: we shall have what? World government, whether or not you like it. The only question is whether world government will be by conquest or consent. So what they're doing is coming at us in two ways. They're coming at us with war, but not just kinetic war. They're coming at us through brainwashing, through financial manipulation, through psychological conditioning, through division, through everything you can imagine. So they're coming at us kinetically, and they're coming at us overtly and covertly. And we need to understand what this is really saying. And this is me. This next part I'm going to read is me speaking as if I'm one of the global elite. I'm telling you what we're really doing to you. We select, groom, finance, and put in place most of your politicians, newscasters, corporate and banking leaders. We control almost all the world's leaders and influencers. We also start all of your wars based on false flag events. And what do we know about the wars? The way they get control of the spheres of influence is they drive us into war after war after war through false flag events. They financially collapse us. That forces us to take a central bank. And Stalin said, or maybe it was Lenin, that implementation of a central bank is 90% of communizing a nation. And so virtually every nation in the world today is under the power of the global shadow government because we're all under the central banking system. So all of this is changing. So we're laying the foundation now for what's going to become unbelievable. We're going to go through in the next probably 3 months or so the greatest disclosures that we have ever seen. Things are happening so fast right now, it's not funny. And as this comes out, you need to be conditioned to not say no automatically through cognitive dissonance because you've been brainwashed, but you need to be conditioned to start to filter the truth out so that you can become an army that stands up and helps us get back our nation. We have to understand that we're slaves. We basically have been financially enslaved and emotionally enslaved, and in every way you can think of. So basically, this is to get us to believe the truth when it comes out in the coming weeks and months. Let's go on down, and I chose this. This is new material because this really tells you just the degree to which our government, our own government, is willing to go to basically enslave us. So this is called Operation Northwood. Now, you looked at my slides, but before this, were you aware of what Operation Northwood was, Francine?
No, I was not.
Most Americans aren't. Are you aware, I'm assuming, of what the Cuban Missile Crisis was and the Bay of Pigs, right?
Yes.
All right. So this is the time frame. This is the 60s. This is the first year of Kennedy's term in office. When he comes in, and they've already laid the groundwork for the invasion, that was the Bay of Pigs. So he was already committed before he ever got in. Everything was in motion. And now it fails. And they say, we got to take Cuba out. We got to take Cuba out. What are we going to do? The people are coming off the heels of Vietnam, and they just come out of the disclosure that the Vietnam War was unwinnable. It was the Pentagon Papers, and massive numbers of people were out protesting against wars. And we finally look. Let's talk about Vietnam for a second. So what came out with those Pentagon Papers? That the war was unwinnable, and that they could have ended it any time they wanted. We found out that what they were doing was using weather manipulation to make sure that Vietnam was constantly under torrential rains so that they couldn't move supplies up the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And so that was one of the weapons that they were using. And then what did we find out? After the war was over, on the heels of the Pentagon Papers, a general wrote a book that told us the truth. And this is a truth that you cannot repudiate. That's repeated in every war, in every single war. So that's why they have scorched earth, for example, because if you don't give people food and access to the necessities of life, how can they fight a war? So here's what we found out. The Haiphong Harbor fills with soot, just in a nanosecond. It's constantly dredged 24/7, 365 days a year to keep it open. And so we knew that. And we knew that the Ho Chi Minh Trail was a little trail through the jungle. So if we cut off the harbor, we ended the war anytime we wanted. So finally, when the protests were so great that they were politically challenging Nixon and the regime in the United States, we decided to end the war. So what did we do? We mined the harbor. And within 6 weeks, it's over. It's over. So now let's go back to what we were talking about. Let's go back to the Cuban Missile Crisis. And they want war, but the people's appetite for war is not there. So here's what they're going to do. Operation Northwood. And Kennedy, by the way, rejected this summarily, just rejected it. But all the Joint Chiefs got together and strategized this strategy and approved it, signed off on it. And what was it about? It was a plan to basically create a false flag that would take the American people into a war in Cuba. And they were willing to commit false flag events. They were willing to crash airplanes. They were willing to bomb buildings. They were willing to kill American people. Now, if we go back and we go forward, the people who followed me can see some credence to this when they think about what we now know about 9/11 and what we know about the Lusitania in World War I and what we know about Pearl Harbor and what we know about how we got into the Iraq War. They were all false flag events. But here we have something we've never had before. We have documents that have been declassified that catch the Joint Chiefs in a covert action to kill American citizens in order to have their war. Let's go to the next slide. And these are the men. Every one of them signed off on this plan to kill U.S. citizens in order to create a war.
Yeah.
If it had not been for Kennedy, we would have gone right out of the heels of Vietnam straight into Cuba. And basically, Kennedy said, no way, not on my watch. And we were spared another war. But look at that. If those men who are control of the military and control of the Pentagon are willing to do that to the American people, what does it say for what our level of trust should be in the three-letter agencies, in the Pentagon, in Washington, D.C., in our government in general? Does it not say that at least very high-powered branches of the government are the enemies of the United States of America and the people of America, and we are sworn to fight opposition, domestic and internal, right? External, foreign and domestic. And so right here, we have a nest of vipers in the United States of America. And it goes much deeper than this. In the coming weeks, you're going to see things this bad and worse. So let's go on. But before we do, let's stop, because that's a lot. Let's see if you've got any comments.
I just want to make note that not everybody in the military nor the government is corrupted, but most most are, because I do believe that we are. There's a military operation going on here, and through the guidance of the Lord and President Trump and several key people, of course, they talk about in the past the 200 generals that are involved or were involved. So there is a plan. And through all this, you're going to see the plan of God's plan, as well as the demonic realms plan. And so it gives you more, directives to pray for and to pinpoint. So
I'm glad you said what you said, because before we went on air, we were talking about what I'm going to be doing in coming weeks. There's one more part to this. And then I have no idea how many parts this is going to be, but we're going to dig into probably the most important story I'll ever be involved with. And that is, we are now full blown coming in to the effort to bring America to its knees, to basically put us on an operating table with a defibrillator so that we're dead and we never come back. So yes, you're absolutely right. I'm an historian. And so what I'm going to be talking about in the coming weeks is history, and how every major nation has always followed a 7-step pattern to demise. But none of those existed in the environment in which we exist in today. There was always a rival nation out there waiting to take the position of the then ruling nation. And right now we're going into something that's very different. We're orchestrating a geopolitical, global financial attack. And yes, there are deep state people like the chiefs of staff that I just mentioned. But let's go back. So Kennedy, involved in Operation Northwood, vetoing it, right, and assassinated because he stood up against Vietnam, about sending troops to Vietnam. He stood up against the CIA and said he wanted to see it fractured into 1,000 different pieces. He stood up against the Federal Reserve and said that basically he had issued silver certificates. So that's the group of people that I was talking about. That's the shadow government. But now let's think about, well, what was the outcome of Kennedy's actions? He was assassinated, right? But then that brought forth what you're talking about. That birthed the 120 generals that became the counterbalance force, white and dark. And that takes us to where we are. And that battle has been being fought in the background all those years, since 1963 till now. And the good news is, folks, we're winning. And so what I'm going to do when I start talking about the financial collapse is I'm going to tell you about all the doomsday. America's going to fall. America's going to fall. And I'm going to contrast it and tell you why absolutely it's not going to fall. Everything is going to change, and there's going to be a lot of trauma, but America's not going to fall. And part of it, for those of you who think like Francine and I do, is because we have somebody on our side that's never lost a war ever, and that's God. This plan is orchestrated by God to basically bring peace and prosperity to the world. So I'm going to go back to Operation Northwood and give you a little bit of detail. So here's my graphic picture of what brainwashing looks like. And here's what I want you to think. They were willing to blow up an airliner, think 9/11. That's what they did on 9/11, right? They were willing to bomb. Think of not only 9/11, but think of the Oklahoma City. Think of Pearl Harbor. Think of the events that they have done to basically drive us into wars. And in those instances, they killed 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people in the event that got us into the war. But then think about the millions that were killed in the war. And then think of the Lusitania. Think USS Liberty. I wish I had this audio clip. I got to tell you about this. So the Lusitania was, of course, World War I. And there was articles that came out in the New York paper saying, hey, this is Germany talking. We've been watching you load that ship. We know it's got ammunitions on it. Therefore, it's a legitimate military target. So if you take that ship and you think because it's a cruise ship with passengers, you're going to be safe, you're wrong. If it comes into the war zone carrying war supplies, we're going to sink it. And then you go to Pearl Harbor, and we now know that basically there was an encryption device that was sent out to all the war zone, except it didn't make it to Pearl Harbor. And we know that the military basically went out and tried to find an admiral who would be stupid enough to bring the 7th Fleet into Pearl Harbor, where it was a target where Franklin was basically baiting Japan to come in and attack us. So we knew all of those things. So all these get credible. They're credible if we know the past and what they've done to us. So then go on down. And then we get into the deadly riots that they called mostly peaceful riots. And I remember watching this one newscaster talking about this peaceful riot, and I'm seeing a building to the right being looted, and straight behind him a solid wall of fire, and then deaths of Cuban refugees. Basically, they were willing to kill U.S. citizens and Cuban refugees in order to get what they wanted. This is just one event of what they've been willing to do in order to control us. Let's go on down to the next slide. And this is pretty important. Maybe you know it by now, maybe you don't. That man on the left-hand side of that picture is now deceased. His name is Aaron Russo. He was a film producer. He ran for governor of one of the states out west on the Libertarian Party, was defeated. But because of what he did politically and because of being a filmmaker, he got to know the man on the right-hand side, which is David Rockefeller, and become friends with him. And so what I'm going to tell you here now relates to 9/11, more of the basically building of the case. They'll do anything to us. And so he now, Aaron Russo, is on InfoWars, and he's having an interview, and people are skeptical. But he comes out and says in another interview, folks, I got nothing to lose. I want to clear my conscience. I have terminal cancer. I'm dying. So that gives to me credibility of what he said. So referring to 9/11's terrorist attack, film producer and Rockefeller friend Aaron Russo was asked by Rockefeller who was behind 9/11 and what was their motive. And here's what he responds. 9/11 was done by people in our own government to end goal. The end goal is to control the whole society and have banks and the elite people and some government control the whole world. So now I'm going to give you a flash of what you're going to be getting in the next few weeks once we get into this takedown of the global shadow government. There's a hint right here in this slide as to what we're going to find out. Basically, he's talking about the banks. And now I'm going to tell you about Elon Musk, and I'm going to talk to you about Doge, and I'm going to tell you what they always say, follow the money. And now we're going to give you details in the coming weeks. And here's what I'm going to give you as a little preview, trying to entice you to come and follow us. This is going to be multi-part. This is a very important series I'm going to be doing. So what do we have in terms of the banks? Doge went in, and with his AI, he followed the money trail, and we're beginning to see what's happening. So now let's look at 3 ways in which are absolutely controlled. We've got massive exposures coming out showing that what we have election theft, right? And we're showing the money trails for how trillions of dollars got into through the real estate industry and was funneled off for dark projects and funneled into election processes. That's one of the things we're seeing, right? So that's that hurt my ears.
Yeah, that was loud. Sorry
So
about that.
made me lose my track of thought. So where was I? So at any rate, we're seeing all the things that they're doing to us. And in the next few weeks, we're going to cover more and more and more, and we're going to dig down. And here's what we're going to find. Now you go to illegal immigration, and you're going to find out that illegal immigration and election integrity are tied together inseparably. And now we're going to find out this. If we use Doge, we follow the money, it leads to the banks. If we follow the money to the banks, we find out that that's the end of the trail. That's where everything starts to explode in on them. And here's what we find out. We find out that the drug cartels can't function unless they can launder the money through what? The banks. The elections can't be stolen unless they can launder the money through what? The banks. And they can't buy political power unless they have the money that comes through the banks. So what has Trump done? He set up provisions through national emergencies so that he can confiscate money from individuals that are doing things that are not in the best interest of the nation. And so when we Christians are looking at the transfer of wealth, look at the corporations, look at the banks, look at the political situation, and they're saying America's broke. Well, America is going to orchestrate the greatest transfer of wealth the world has ever seen. We're going to take the money from the wicked to the righteous, and a large portion of it is going to come from what's exposed with the banking industry and the corporations and the political arena. And when all this happens and we go on to blockchain, it's all transparent. They won't be able to steal our elections anymore. They won't be able to steal our money anymore. Basically, everything will be out in the open. And what do they say? That sunlight is basically the best antidote to anything that controls us. So don't listen to the people who are feeding you a bunch of negativity. We're winning, and we have tools at our disposal that are going to expose things to a degree to which you can't even imagine. Let's go on down, and we'll go into a couple of them more. I'm just trying to convince you of what they're willing to do. So what you see there is Pearl Harbor. And basically, they had to go to 3 different admirals to say, we want you to park the 7th Fleet in Pearl Harbor. And finally, one was greedy enough, wanted enough power, enough prestige that he did it. And there's the outcome. And then this is the shell of 9/11. And you just heard what Aaron Russo said. It was done by our own government to control the American people, to take us into war. Now, I've talked about this in the past. So what was the outcome of that? One of the goals they want to do is economically collapse America, right? So while China and Dubai and other nations are building gleaming cities that are incredible, go take a look at the internet and you'll see some of the most amazing architecture you've ever seen in the world. We were going through the financial collapse that happened the day of because they attacked Wall Street. And then we're looking at the years that came up where they orchestrated the '08 financial collapse. And then we're looking at the cost of the war. And you add it all together, we spent $16.5 trillion that was just transferred from the tax base of the American people to the global financial elite, and we got nothing for it except a day older and deeper in debt, like that old Tennessee Ernie Ford says. So basically, you just need to understand they orchestrate things, and to them, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 50 years is nothing. They have a long-range plan. And so with that, we're getting down and we're digging into it. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to take you all the way back to World War II. And I'm going to show you a comparison to what happened in 9/11. So we had what? We had a Hitler who was raised up through the ranks and became chancellor, and then became what? The Fuhrer. And how did he do it? He orchestrated the burning down of the Reichstag, which is the German parliament, blamed it on a communist, and declared national emergency, and it was called the Enabling Act, and that gave him the power to become the Fuhrer and inflict the world with World War II. Well, guess what, folks? Bush did the same thing. The 9/11 attack was orchestrated in order to inflict us with the Patriot Act, which took away our freedom, which basically put us under more surveillance than we had ever been. And if you go back and do your homework, here's what you'll find. It was modeled after Hitler's Enabling Act. So basically, then I've got quotes that I've done in other shows that basically say that Bush and the people who were behind Bush was orchestrating what? A legal dictatorship, which is exactly what happened with the Reichstag, with the Enabling Act. And so here, just one little proof that I've done in shows before. The Patriot Act was supposedly agreed to on a bipartisan basis. It was laid on the table for signing, and at 3:45 a.m., Bush had it pulled and had a version laid on the table that none of Congress had seen. And they went ahead and signed it, and it basically gave us the Enabling Act based upon calling it, we called it the Patriot Act, but it was in effect a shadow of the Enabling Act that gave us World War II. So I just need you to understand the degrees to which they'll go. Oh, here's that quote. Let's go on to the next slide. I forgot this was in here. So the interest behind the Bush administration, such as the CFR, the Trilateral Commission founded by Brzezinski and David Rockefeller and the Bilderberg Group, has prepared for and are now moving to implement an open world dictatorship. And this guy is somebody who should know. Koppel, he's a former official of the German Ministry for Defense and advisor to who? NATO. So this is not just some schlock talking. This is a guy who knows what was being done. And here we've got the quote. I guess basically I got ahead of myself. I said I got tied up and didn't get to review these at the last minute. So let's go to the next slide, and we'll just sum up those numbers for what we got out of the events of 9/11. There it was. On the day of, we lost 1.4 trillion, and then we lost in the 08 collapse 3.3 trillion, and then in the collapse of the stock market in 08 we lost 6.9, and then the war cost us 7, and it was I was a little off. I said 16. It was $18.6 trillion that we lost as a result of being suckered into that false flag event and drawn into a war. And was it just any war? No. It followed the trajectory of Vietnam, which lasted for years, right? And what happened? The day Bush announced it, he stood up before the American people and said, he must be a psychic. He said, this is going to be a generational war lasting 20 or perhaps 30 years, a war, I would add, designed to drive America deep, deep, deep into debt. As a matter of fact, the bill was $18.6 trillion. Think about what America would look like. China was spending that kind of money building China, and we got nothing for the $16 trillion that we spent. Nothing. All that's changing. Trump is now wise to what's going on. So let's go on down. And let's recap the death toll from what they've done. So the Lusitania, World War I, 21 million people killed. The Gulf of Tonkin, that was Vietnam War, 3.8 million people. Pearl Harbor, 60 million people killed in that war. And then the Iraq War, 4.5 million. And then let's don't forget COVID. I mean, I don't know what the death toll was there, but basically it was horrendous. Let's go on down. I'm going to go through these slides real quick. I just want to give you a history lesson. Everything is history. So everything you see there, every war you see, basically was to drive us into death. So we have the Revolutionary War. What happened? We wanted to what? We wanted to be able to be a free nation. We wanted to be able to own land. We wanted to not have to pay taxes to the British for our labor. And we were free for about 8 years. And then we went bankrupt because of the war. We were under the central bank. Then the charter expired in 1811, and in 1812 we refused to sign it. And along came the War of 1812, called the Second Revolutionary War, designed to keep us under what? The British control and the Silver Bank. And then we go to the Civil War, and people don't understand that the history has been skewed. They think it's all about the slavery. No, it wasn't. It was all about an orchestrated event to break America in half because they thought a united America would be too powerful. And so basically they went to the South with their spies, and they basically said, you need the free trade system because you don't have the manufacturing the North has. It wasn't until England was about to enter the war that Lincoln got smart, and he said the British people do not like slavery. So he declared the Emancipation Proclamation and kept England from coming officially into the war. Then we go to World War I, and most people who don't know history don't understand that as we came into that war, our greatest friend in Europe was Germany. They were adopting the American economic system. They were becoming the rivals of England, and they were our friend. And we negotiated a deal where England came to us and says, come into this war. We have to have this war because they're building manufacturing that threatens us, and they're building railroad systems that threaten us. We have to have control of the world by sea. But America, if you come into this war, look at what you're going to get. You're half a world away. There'll never be any fighting on your your continent. You will basically build all the world munitions and make trillions of dollars. Afterwards, you'll come in and you will do what? You will rebuild Europe. So America, come on in, abandon your closest ally, Germany, and come on in and let's have us a nice handy dandy war. And then we go to World War II. And that one of those things changed, and what that was all about was the same deal. You'll be over there safe. And basically then we go to Vietnam, and that was to take America now and to start to drive us into debt. 9/11 was to bring us deeper and deeper in debt, and the Middle East was about a little regional problem they had where a couple of countries in the Middle East wanted to have a gold-backed system. They couldn't be allowed to do that, and one of the nations there said, you know what, we want to maintain control of our own oil. And so Saddam Hussein said, no, we're not going to accept the same deal that you gave to the Saudis, which was called the money laundering deal. And so they concocted the whole Arab Spring. And then does that have something that goes even further? It relates to our immigration issue, because they knew they would create a refugee crisis, and they knew they would send millions of Muslims who could have multiple wives into Europe, and in one generation they would be the political majority, and they would be trying to drive Europe into Sharia law. The same thing is being done. History just repeats itself over in the United States with all of the migrants that have come in, some 10 to 20 million since 2019. Now, let's go on down to the most heinous thing of all. I'm just trying to set the stage for next week. And that is, we know that COVID, it wasn't just something that happened. There were multiple patents on COVID, and it was released as a weapon of war. And so now they're not content to just financially collapse us. They're not content to just brainwash us. They're not content to kill a few million at a time in wars. They're now willing to do global genocide with what? The goal of reducing the population between 500 million and 1 billion. Think of the Georgia Guidestones that were blown up. Think of the statements coming out of the UN. Think of the war that we're in. Think of the enemy that we're up against, and ask yourself, would the enemy who would do this think for 1 second, hesitate for an instant to brainwash you, to control you, to basically make you subservient to them in every way and shape and form that they could? We're almost done, Francine, but let me stop. I haven't given you many chances to talk, but when you did talk, you brought up some good points. So before we go on, anything you want to add to this? This has all been reviewed. We've talked about this, all of this over the last 2 years, but I need to set it up and refresh the audience because we have a lot of new people and a lot of things are happening. This will give credibility to what we're going to talk about next week when you see the unbelievable things that they do to brainwash us and how we've been so susceptible. It's not even funny. So comments.
Yeah, just what you said in regards to this brainwashing deal. This is what they've been doing for so many years, having us believe that wars were necessary when they were not. And then this whole COVID deal in regards to, it brings it back to that whole control issue again. Let's see if they will comply. Let's see if they will comply. And so people are waking up. Praise God. Their eyes are being opened. They're listening, they're hearing, they're doing their due diligence and research and finding out what has really been going on for all these years. And the beautiful thing is that you can't hide something for so long before it has to come out, just like a pregnant woman, right? The baby coming out no matter what. And the truth is coming out. And what's so unfortunate and so sad is that so many, I mean, you look at those wars, millions of people, even with 9/11, who passed because of the hands of these demonic, evil, selfish people. And but it's all coming out. Justice will be served no matter what, be it here on earth or and at the judgment day for that individual. They will face their judgment face to face, and there's no turning back. So we bring these podcasts to you, these broadcasts to you, so that you can pass them to others that may be on the fence, that have not had the privilege of learning or receiving this information. So thank you, Larry, again for just kind of doing a recap here.
Think of Gideon. Think of here's what I'm coming up against right now. Basically, people think that we're asleep, we're never going to wake up. But think of the Bible. Basically, God always waits. He waits for who? For us to wake up, for the situation to get bad enough. And then what does he do? When he thinks we're on life support and we've given up, that's the very moment he steps in, if we wake up and if we bend a knee to him. So think of Gideon. Think of the army that he kept saying, no, that's too many. No, that's too many. No, 300 men. And they didn't have any weapons. All they had was clay jars with fire in it, and they had their shofars. They blew the shofar, clapped the things together, made a thunder, saw lightning, and basically what? The troops killed themselves. So God is standing in the wings saying, America, world, when are you going to wake up? I'm waiting here to help you. We are going to win. We're winning right now. And like you pointed out, we've had 120 military leaders, plus who knows how many other people. This is not just the United States. This is every nation in the world fighting to get its freedom. This is the recognition of what's coming out, that the 72 nations have illegitimate governments, and we're going to be able to get them out and put in what? A coup that's unbelievable, where all of a sudden we have elections all around the world and honest government is restored to the world. And then you think when that happens, that things aren't going to drastically change when we understand what's been done to us. And when people come to the realization like I have, we had a constitution that was supposed to give us certain inalienable rights. And through people like Bush and what he did, basically, it's now 2,700 pages. And what is it? What did I say in that quote? It said that basically Bush and others like him were instituting a legal dictatorship. And how do they do it? They used the courts to pass precedent that weren't viewed through the lens of the Constitution, that basically created laws that created a legal dictatorship. And so one of the things that's going to have to happen, the UN has to be closed down. We have to get out of NATO. We have to stop fighting wars all over the world. And basically, we have to understand that we've been controlled and manipulated, and we have to open our eyes. And when we do, we're going to see that it's just like Elijah. There's more of us than there are of them. There's a vast array, and there are just a couple of million people out there that are our enemies. And if we all just stand up and say no, they're going to lose. We're winning. They're losing. But here's where they're going to try to balance the scales. Let's go to the next slide, and you'll see what they want to do. COVID, we've just done that one, actually. So let's go to the next one. And here's what they're doing. Basically, with automation, they're now saying that the greatest accomplishment in the coming century is going to be figuring out what to do with us superfluous eaters, us useless eaters. So with AI, they're not going to need us. So now they've got a green light to go forward with anything they want. And maybe it's another virus that's even more lethal than COVID was. I don't know. They're going to come at us at every way they can because we're in their way. We're just useless eaters consuming what they consider to be their natural resources, and we're in their way. They want to regreen this planet and turn it into their version of utopia, a version where we've been killed. And that's That's the essence of what I'm trying to get across. So next week, when I get into the actual brainwashing techniques, you'll believe it. You'll believe that they would do it, because that's actually nothing compared to what they've already done. Let's go on down. And we're going to go into the fourth industrial revolution. And basically, what do we have to say here? I think I'll read Carl Schwab's quote here. He envisions a world where artificial intelligence, as AI, has effectively obsoleted mankind. It is a world where AI and robots have taken over most jobs, and the elite no longer need us. So they are free to what? Exterminate 7 billion of us useless eaters. Well, folks, here's the flip-flop of that. It's not going to be what's going to happen. What's going to happen, we're going to use AI. God is going to allow us to basically have tremendous increases in productivity. We're still going to have jobs, but maybe it's not a 60-hour-a-week job. Maybe it's a 40-hour-a-week job. And maybe because it's so much cheaper to produce products with AI. I've seen some amazing things in the last couple of weeks. Tesla, his new mini house, $10,000. He has a RV, $10,000. There's a motorcycle that's come out that looks effectively like a car, $3,000. Because so now think of all that money they're not spending. They're not paying for healthcare. They're not paying for your salaries. So we're going to have some sort of supplemental income come in from the government. We're still going to have to work, or else everything falls apart. But now guess what? You might have the freedom to have that job be something that benefited mankind. You might be able to change your career. You're going to be able to have time to get, oh, who's that woman I married? You know, I kind of remember her. Who are those? Those are my kids over there. Those are my neighbors. We're going to be able to change the world and basically go back to what Christ was asked by the apostles. Master, what's the greatest verse in the Bible? To love thy Lord thy God with all thy heart and all thy soul. And the second is as unto it, to love thy neighbor as thyself. So they've made our neighbors our enemy. And now we're going to see that the only enemy we have is a global financial elite who want to control us. And all those other people are just victims like us. And once we come to that realization, they're done. Absolutely done. So the megaphone, let's go to the next slide. The megaphone is getting exposed. The fake news, as Trump called it when they laughed at him, we now find that it's real, and that orange man was right all along. And when we get to what we're going to talk about next week, you're going to see the degree to which it's true. And let's look at this next slide. Well, look at all that. We've got all of those options for our news. Let's go back to 1925 when we came in and bought maybe it was 1915. They bought the 25 largest newspapers in order to do what? To control public opinion.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
now we got CBS, we got NBC, we got Fox, we got ABC, we got MSNBC, we got Google, we got Twitter, we got Facebook, we got Microsoft, we got lots of options. No, we don't. All of those feeds run through Rudder, which is controlled by the global financial elite. So how many options do we have? One, controlled completely, utterly, and absolutely by the people who want to kill us. So that's brainwashing. There's no alternative. So what did I say? When the only word you have is coming from a source that hates you, you have no ability to see the truth. Everything you get is a lie. It's either an out and out lie, it's a lie mingled with a truth and a half truth and spun in a way that confuses you, so you don't know what. But if you think you have all those medias to go and tune into to get the truth, no, it's one feed. Now let's go to the next slide. And if you think they can control us, I mean, basically, here's what's happening. We're coming into a situation where we're going to have the greatest financial collapse the world has ever seen. And remember I talked about the banks a minute ago, right? So Doge, I believe, put his tentacles out there, and it led directly to the banks. And what's Trump going to do? As we go through this financial collapse, which I'm going to be talking about for several weeks coming, what's going to happen when we get to that financial collapse? Well, it's probably not going to be the way the global financial think it's going to work out. Basically, what we're going to do is flip everything on them, upside down, inside out, and we're going to show what involvement of the banks is and what has Trump been doing. So Trump has made an executive order that says, hey, if we find out you were involved in shenanigans, your politicians, Nancy Pelosi, be on notice. You don't make the kind of money on the stock market you do unless there's some shenanigans. Same for all the rest of you politicians who came in as middle-class people and became millionaires, you bankers, you corporate leaders, all of you. Basically, we're going to follow the money and we're going to take you down. And the truth is going to come out and it's going to set you free. And then what happens when, what do they say? He who controls money controls the world. When we take them down by following the money, which is what they always say, then they won't be able to control the political situation, the banking, the corporations, the military industrial complex, the educational system, the media, the entertainment, or the other religious systems, and they will have lost utter, complete, and absolute control, and us little ants will march in victorious. That's what's coming. That's what's coming. Comments, Francine?
No, let's do this thing. Come on now and finish it once and for all.
I'm going to have to read another one. This is very important because I want you to understand this is one of those brainwashing things. So here's what it is. They basically lie to us, like I've been saying. And here's they have bought and paid for politicians at the top. They're blackmailed, they're bought, they're paid for by or whatever. And then you got community organizing groups at the bottom. And let's think of Barack Obama's role. So he's just the most standout example of what they do. So Barack Obama comes in, a Muslim who says that the most beautiful sound he's heard is the call to prayer. He's basically a Muslim, who means he's basically looks at us as infidels, as the enemy, and he's the one who said, I'm going to reduce the American military to a level acceptable to my Muslim brothers. And now he comes in, and one of the 7 steps of decline is moral depravity. Oh, can we think all the way back to Greece and to Rome and so forth? And so he's ordered by his puppet masters, let's drive America a little bit deeper into moral depravity. Let's basically gin up something that says we're going to have same-sex marriage. So what does he do? They've had community organizing groups out there forever protesting gay rights, and he gets in the middle of it, and he sends his newscasters out, and he says, I don't care how you have to position your cameras, but make it look like there's a mass of people out there protesting for same-sex marriage and for LGBT and all those other things, and then I'll step in at the top. So we'll get momentum from the bottom, and then I'll step in as the president, and I'll say, it is now my responsibility as the president of the United States to give the people what they want. And so executive order comes down and boom, we got same-sex marriage. They do that to us over and over and over and over and over again. And if you haven't recognized that, it is one of the principal ways that no matter what we, the people, want, they give us what they want. This is a very, very important quote. So I think I'll read it completely.
Yeah.
Council on Foreign Relations, and just as a reminder, they stand for one world government, for open borders. They're our enemy. So and by the way, the Council on Foreign Relations happens to have had their own spy network. When we came into World War II, we had none. And so we adopted their spy network, and it became the Fed and the CIA and all the 3-letter agencies that now have been corrupted from the top down and control us. Now let's read this quote. The Council on Foreign Relations is the establishment, meaning it's important. Not only does it have influence and power in key decision-making positions where at the highest level of the government, meaning what? The Congress, the Senate, the governors, the mayors, and the president, and the courts, and even the Supreme Court to apply pressure from above. But it also uses individuals and groups to bring pressure from below to justify the high-level decisions for what? For converting the U.S. from a sovereign constitutional republic, the government that we were founded under, a government of the people, by the people, for the people, into a servile member state of a one-world dictatorship. 1971, former Congressman John Rickert made that quote. There it is, folks. You just need to understand how they control us. This is the last slide before we go to my book. So this is where we're going to start next week. So the first place they begin this is Joseph Stalin talking. America is like a healthy body, and its resistance is what? It's patriotism, it's morality, and it's spirituality. If we can undermine these three areas, America will fall from within. So they knew we were too powerful to take out in a kinetic war, but if they could undermine us and corrupt us from within, and then attack us from the outside, and then drive us financially collapse, then maybe we could be taken over. And so this is where the war begins. This is where we're going to pick up next week with where they have come in and undermined everything. Look, they've taken what? Prayer out of the school. They've taken the Pledge of Allegiance out of the school. They've allowed boys to go into girls' gyms and girls' locker rooms, and they basically forced our children to sit in on story time by LGBT whatever. Trump is changing everything. So what I'm going to be telling you in the next several weeks is everything they've been doing ever since Carter, that's probably where I'm going to pick it up, is all being reversed by the policies of Donald J. Trump. And so I'm going to be pushing to have people understand not only the brainwashing, but understand the policies that Trump is implementing that are absolutely turning the tables on the global financial elite. And America is not going to fall, but here is what is going to happen. America, control of the global financial elite, has been one of the biggest bullies in the world. America is not going to be a bully. America is going to get back the government that it had in the first place, and it's going to do what it did at a point in time when we weren't controlled, and that was when we came out of the Civil War, having fought a war with England, the puppet masters, and won. And what did we do? We innovated the world into the Industrial Revolution, and where England and all of the aristocrats had always controlled everything and made shortages, basically made everything, they controlled the necessities of life. We shared everything. And what I'm going to be showing you is that if what we did then, if you think that was something America is going to create, here's what's going to happen. This is going to be very complex. So it's going to take a long time. And that's why the whole several shows dedicated to it. But he's going to bring the dollar down, creating a parachute for a soft collapse, a soft bankruptcy of the United States. And then something's going to happen that's never happened before through his tariff policies and many other things that he's doing. He is going, at the same time that he's bringing the dollar down, he's going to grow the economy so that America will heal itself financially, and then a restored America, the innovator of the Industrial Revolution, the innovator of the dot-com revolution, the innovator of the computer, the innovator of AI, will step in and share technology that was queued up by Trump when he did the Chevron deal and got the Supreme Court to say we're going to get access to some 6,000 patents. We're going to get free energy, and they're going to lose the ability to control the necessities of life. They're going to lose the microphone that brainwashes us, and everything is going to change. So with this is where we end today. This is where we start next week, and I'm going to make it real quick. Guys, if you don't think that what I do has value, then don't buy my book. But if you want to be a part of an army that saves this world, that creates a future for your children and your grandchildren, you need to buy this book, because knowledge is power. That's all I can say. We're coming into a critical point in time, and what they're going to try to do is orchestrate social disobedience, riots in the streets. We need people who understand what's being done and who could stand up and give a counter position to what's being done. So we need an army. Please buy this book, and I'll make kind of an early announcement. I'm holding the second book back until I reached the point when I think God has let me know that everything is going to be at the apex. So my second book, this book was Liberty Crusade, The Fight to Save the Free World. This is the fight to save us. The second book got its title 2 years ago, and it was Liberty Crusade, restored republic. So this book is what you need for the groundwork, and the next one is what we need to dig ourselves out of this and become the greatest superpower the world's ever seen. But the difference is we're not going to be a bully. We're going to share that power with nations all over the world. And what's going to happen is we're going to end the situation where nations around the world can control other nations by controlling strategically significant resources and assets. And basically, we're going to make it so that everybody has, like Trump said, the currencies are going to be adjusted so that basically it goes to what Eisenhower said, is there any man, any woman, any child that doesn't understand the principal cause of war? So here's what we're going to get out of all these wars is economic parity between nations. So Trump has come back in and said, we're going to give a decent standard of living to every nation in the world. We're going to stop Western hegemony. And so that's another topic we'll be talking about in the coming weeks, how the playing field is going to be leveled on behalf of we, the people of the world. The slave class is not going to be the slave class. And we're going to be basically a nation that walks smack dab into spirituality, and everything is going to change. So with that, we have exhausted the topic for today. Any last thing you want to say? And remember, stay on afterwards because I have something I need to ask you.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm going to show our website here on Rumble. And I thank Rumble for just allowing us to share what we need to share to everybody. I started a channel on YouTube. I've noticed that they've been throwing some of our old shows on YouTube, which is really good. They still won't give me my channel back UpFront in the Prophetic. However, the channel that I'm trying to rebuild is Francine Unscripted, but I'm going to see if I can change it to UpFront with Francine so it kind of hooks up. So I'm trying to maneuver, guys, but just because I'm putting these broadcasts out there, I want you to know that if they cut me up totally, you can always come back to Rumble because they've been so wonderful. I know they've helped my friend LT with And We Know and several others, which is a blessing. So thank you, Rumble, for being so good to us. So with that, yeah, Larry, wow, exciting week. Today's the 17th. The 22nd is around the corner. Thanksgiving, my gosh, at the end of next week. And I believe we'll have a lot to be thankful for. No matter what, we do have a lot to be thankful for. So, guys, just keep up the faith, keep your eyes on him, and watch him move because he's moving mightily.
You mentioned the 22nd a couple of times. Do you want to tell them why it's significant? You want me to tell them? What's your opinion?
Yeah, you can tell him. That's fine.
Well, there's a lot of things, but basically ISO 2 2022 compliancy is going to kick in on the 22nd. Now, my interpretation is from funneling Bitcoin, we're also got the spot ETFs coming out. I don't think you're going to see massive changes happen in that day because those ETFs have to be able to have products that are built around them, but it's an early indicator of the financial system getting prepared to flip. So pay attention. There's going to be things coming down so fast you can't even imagine. And maybe I should do one last thing, kind of what you were doing. So sure. I now have my own channel on YouTube. I've been waiting all this time to start it, and I'm on Rumble. And basically, you can go to my website, which is LarryBallard.com, or you can go to my show, which is Liberty Crusade Official. So you can follow me there. I'm doing more and more shows. I'm trying to get away from doing so many shows with other people, but I will not be leaving Francine under any consideration. So you can always come here, and she was the first one to give me a platform, and the sky will have to fall before I leave her. So you can find me here, or you can find me on my own channel, but I'm dedicating more and more time to developing my channel. So I'm going to be appearing on fewer other channels with other people. So with that, there's my endorsement for where you can go to find me.
That's right. Woohoo! All right, guys. What a blessing to have you aboard today. Be safe. Keep your eyes not on the ball, but on him, and he will your steps for the day, and may the ruach breath of God just blow over you, and may you feel his presence every day, guys, every day. So bless you all. Thank you, Larry. Blessings, everyone.
Don't forget to stay on for a second, okay?
You got it. All right, everyone. Blessings.